Hello, everyone, and welcome to Let's Write an Adventure, our ongoing live stream where we are creating a full campaign in real time, including a customized, completely built from scratch domain of Dread. I'm RJ Kerr. I'm your host, as always, and tonight we're going to continue building out some of the investigative scenes and maybe get into some of the little mini dungeons that we kind of have planned. Um, but first, let me go ahead and give you a quick summary of what we've done so far. So if you're new here, you don't feel completely lost. This is an interactive live stream, and so if you're watching the real-time recording with me right now, please feel free to jump in and give me your comments, questions, thoughts, even concerns, or whether they're on topic or off topic. I do love hearing from you all. It's a great way to kind of spark some creativity. And frankly, some of the best ideas that we've come up with on this stream come from people like you. So please feel free to jump in with your comments. If you're watching the recording of this, still jump in with your comments. Leave them. I try to answer everybody's comments they leave behind. So I try to be as interactive as possible, even when this is just when you're watching the recording after the fact, if you couldn't make the live stream. So, with that being said, right now we're building out a domain of dread where the characters have stepped into this new world that takes place in and around an inland sea. And so we've got a lot of nautical themes, a lot of sea monster kind of stuff going on here. We've got a shanty town called Darkport where the characters will begin their adventure. We've written out the first adventure where they're actually kidnapped and enslaved briefly and have to break out from all of that, out from underneath the control of a Aboleth-led faction that is searching for a lost artifact that gives the possessor infinite power over the domain, this domain of dread. And so the characters will learn as part of the first adventure that this artifact is their key to getting out of here, how they can escape. And so we've written that first adventure, and now we're working on sort of the second segment of this. I won't call it the second adventure because there's actually a lot of little adventures that we're going to kind of link together as we do this. But we're working on a kind of an investigative arc here, a mystery arc where the characters have to go and search out information and find clues as to the location of this artifact themselves. Uh, and so we have been working on that for the last couple sessions here. And so let me go ahead and share my screen. Um, and so we're using a 5-node story structure. Um, well, we're using a node story structure. We've got more than 5 nodes on it. We've added some layers to this. We may add some more layers as we go, just to kind of see how this pans out. But right now, what we've got is we have a series of initial clues that we have thought about in terms of where the characters are going to end up right after their first adventure. So they've escaped captivity, they've got some found gear, but they're not in a great position. And so we don't know kind of what they're going to do. Are they going to go on the attack and try to, gather as much information as possible right away? Are they going to kind of go to ground and recuperate and come up with a plan, that kind of deal? And so what we've done is we've created several clues that the characters that we can kind of toss to the characters no matter what kind of situation they're in. And so we started with a storyteller of some kind that has old tales of the artifact that's lost, and that leads to a further investigative scene we'll talk about in a second here. We've talked about a loose sort of pointer character um, who uh, who can direct the player characters to a failed treasure hunter who is now currently investigating a lead as to this artifact, and they can go try to get information out of that treasure hunter, which is another investigative scene. And then we've also came up with this idea for there being this sort of short sea shanty, which in my mind is kind of boiled down to a couple stanzas of that people kind of repeat as a drinking song, but actually has some clues in it that will lead the characters to another investigative scene as they investigate the idea of what else might be in the full song and what other clues they might be able to uncover. So, with that in mind, we built out a series of secondary investigative scenes. Where do these clues lead? Um, and so, one of the techniques that we use for this, and one that I highly recommend if you are working on creating your own mystery style adventures, is instead of focusing in on the clues themselves, start brainstorming just cool places and cool interactions that the characters might have, and then figure out how one can connect to the other. It sounds a little silly. It sounds like I know it sounds like that might become problematic, and you might come up with two things that just don't connect in any way, shape, or form. But I have yet to ever have that problem. I'll be honest with you, and it's come up with some just really cool ideas for places the characters can go, and it keeps us from ending up in sort of a stagnant, like just sort of a series of procedural interviews, which just isn't as fun for anybody. It becomes a little bit of a slog. And so we started with one where we have the characters have the opportunity to learn from the storyteller who's an old salt and a little bit of kooky and has a long memory. And they can go to this sort of this de facto historian's place and sift through their old tomes and manifests and diaries and ship logs and what have you, and find clues there. They can interview this old salt who's got kind of a wandering mind, and they've got to keep him on track and get clues for that. Um, and then we can find out that about the treasure hunter here as well, because we want multiple clues that lead to each scene. That way, if the characters miss one, they're not just kind of out of luck, right? So we came up with that. And then we started working on the treasure hunter. And we came up with this idea that this treasure hunter, who is also looking for the artifact, because of course many people are looking for the artifact, they want that power. We've got several factions we've built out that are doing that. Um, but that this treasure hunter would be at an actual adventure site. They'd be in a dungeon environment looking for clues and that kind of deal, and the characters have to go and find them there as well. Um, we will link that to some of the other investigative scenes. I realize I'm being a little long-winded here, so we're gonna wrap up kind of the summary, but I want to get everybody kind of on the same page so we can get your ideas. Um, but we'll have some clues there that the treasure hunter doesn't want to give up all their information about this artifact, because of course they want it for themselves, but they can be persuaded and manipulated and intimidated into giving some information. Um, for example, about the storyteller, they can get some. He can give up that information. Um, you can get them to the treasure hunter to recount the sea shanty, which provides the clues again that lead to the that particular lead we'll talk about in a second here. We talked about intimidating them into giving and to sharing their next big lead, which takes us into one of our tertiary investigative scenes. Um, and so we spent a little time then building out sort of the clues around this sea shanty, because this is going to be an interesting kind of set of clues here. And it's going to do a little extra work for us because we're going to have to write a sea shanty. But hey, how hard can it be, especially with the assistance of potentially using like ChatGPT or something to give us kind of the pacing and the length and that kind of deal if we need to. But we came up with the idea that there would be kind of this common sea shanty that's heard in taverns and on the street, and the characters would probably have heard this song sung over and over again, kind of while they've been in this domain of dread, just to start. Um, where uh, they and so it's been kind of in the background, but when they really listen to it and really kind of dig into it, that they get to understand that it references um, a siren that lives off the coast on an atoll growing out of a shallow reef, and suggests to the characters that they go and indirectly suggests to the characters they go investigate and try to find this siren, who turns out to know the full ballad that is full of other clues that reference a moving isle, um, that speak of the dungeon that the treasure hunter is exploring currently, um, and suggest that there might be more history to the song leading back to that same storyteller and what have you. So we've got some of the crisscross of the clues there as well. Whew. So we've done a lot on this already, and we came up with some ideas for tertiary scenes as well. A ghost ship castle, so a multitude of shipwrecks that have been gathered around a natural stone arc off a seaside cliff, and the ships have been repurposed into a castle-like structure and perhaps become a Sahuagin stronghold. We talked about a wizard's tower that is actually an enormous pillar of salt growing out of a shallow lagoon, and the wizard has a hidden link to the Aboleth faction. We talked about a moving isle where a shrine to Evander, our elemental villain who kind of presides over this domain of dread, and so far has been a little shadowy in the adventure, um, has a shrine set up to them on the back of an enormous dragon turtle, and the shrine holds some valuable information, its location, the artifact as well. And so now we're kind of working on these tertiary scenes and figuring out kind of how they're going to fit. One of the things that I want to make sure that we include in all of this is a little bit of conflict, right? What we don't want, because it's boring, is for the characters to show up an investigative scene and run into just an NPC who just wants to be the most helpful person in the whole wide world and just tell them everything that they want to know. And there's really no effort that has to be expended into gathering this. And we have some conflict that is inherent to some of this. We talked about our storyteller is kind of flighty, a little bit of a little kooky, a little out there, and so they're hard to kind of keep on track and deal with. And so there's a low level conflict there that you're kind of trying to manage this personality into getting the information that the characters need. The treasure hunter, we've got some inherent conflict here. One, because there's a dungeon that the characters have to get through to get to them. And then two, they have a person who doesn't really want to be helpful to them because they want the same things as the characters want. And so we have a contentious interview there. So we have some inherent conflict. Um, Now, the conflict is a little light on our siren. I'm going to say I'm going to change this instead of sea shanty lead to sea shanty siren, and we're just going to pretend that that's not a tongue twister. Um, so conflict's a little bit lighter here. One, we got to find the siren, so you have a little bit of exploration conflict there. It's a little bit of a challenge. And when I say conflict, I'm really just referring to challenges for the characters to overcome because we want the information they earn to not only be valuable but feel valuable, to feel like they earned it and that they can trust it and that it's important and they got this useful thing that wasn't just given to them by the DM they actually had to exert some energy and earn. And so um, we are so they've got to go find the siren, which is one level of conflict here. But maybe the siren doesn't want to give up their information for free. Maybe they want something else. And so we might um, work on a little bit of the conflict there. What might a siren want from the characters in exchange for this ballad? Um, it could be all kinds of things. Maybe the siren is maybe the siren wants to eat them, and they have to defeat the siren in some capacity. Maybe the siren wants them to recover something else or negotiate with someone else. Um, hmm, something to think about here. And again, I'd love to get your ideas. So if you've got some thoughts on what a siren might want from a group of adventurers, um, toss that into the chat. Likewise, we're going to do the same kind of thing for our ghost ship castle, our wizard's tower, on our moving island. We want to create some challenges here. Um, our ghost ship castle, that becomes kind of a raid style adventure, I think, because we've got this idea that there's a ship's log that's hidden in there. We suggested that with our storyteller, um, and actually, did we? No, we suggested that with our treasure hunter. There we go. We have an intimidation check is required to convince the treasure hunter to share their next lead, an old ship's log believed to reside within the ghost ship castle. And so uh, we are we know that there's something that the characters need from in there. This is a heavily fortified facility, so maybe a heist or a raid style adventure where the characters have got to, instead of just you know waltzing in and slaying everyone and bringing the whole place down on their ears. They've got to be a little stealthier than that. They've got to be a little more precise. So let's detail that out a little bit here. The ships have been repurposed as a castle-like structure and perhaps become a Shahoogan stronghold. Um, Here, the characters are seeking a ship's log with clues as to the location of the artifacts last known, well, location. I'm repeating myself here. Hate doing that, but sometimes it happens. Um, the artifact's last known location. Um, and let's see here. This lends itself to a raid style or heist style adventure. And so that gives us our inherent conflict there. So I don't know that we need a whole lot more conflict for our ghost ship castle. The Wizard's Tower, one of you all last time had a great suggestion, and that was with the wizard having some kind of link to this Aboleth-led faction that we've thought up, the one that initially enslaved the player characters and they escaped from, who is obviously looking for the artifact themselves. And that maybe there's a link between this faction and the wizard, and that perhaps the wizard is getting information from the Aboleth. They're learning some of those ancient secrets that an Aboleth would hold in its near perfect memory, and in return, it's doing favors for the Aboleth. And one of those favors might be turning over the PCs. So I'm kind of for this, and I'd love to get your thoughts. Again, I'd love to get your thoughts on this. I'm kind of for this. I'm envisioning um, this interview that starts out as kind of a one that doesn't feel contentious at the beginning. That the wizard seems very helpful and if perhaps distracted, and seems like they really want to help the characters in their quest and give them the information that they need, but is in fact stalling for time because they've contacted their Aboleth faction representative, their contact, and they're waiting for them to arrive to ambush and capture the characters. So, I mean, I imagine kind of this scene that you have this character with this secret, and so there's just something just a little bit off in there, and the player characters have got to kind of uncover that or be surprised by this combat encounter. Um, so why don't we outline that a little bit here? Um, let's say the wizard has a hidden link to the Aboleth-led faction, and these factions are going to need names at some point. I've been putting that off, but if you have ideas for the name of an Aboleth-led faction, the name of a Slod-led faction, I would love to hear your thoughts. The wizard has a hidden link to the Aboleth-led faction. When the characters, well, we're going to say the PCs just to keep this clean. When the PCs arrive, the wizard seems helpful enough, though distracted. They come up with myriad reasons to stall and resist giving characters the information they seek while ensuring the characters stick around. Uh, unknown. Unknown to the PCs, the wizard has contacted the Aboleth-led faction and is stalling until they arrive to attempt a recapture of the PCs. Cool. So we've got some conflict going on here, and we can pull some clues out of that. We'll have to think about what kind of clues we need here. We may have another kind of level of investigative stuff that goes on here as we work through this. Just depending on what kind of clues we can reasonably pull out of this, and whether or not they're going to lead to our ultimate solution, which we know where the artifact is being held. We know that it is deep underwater in the ruins of an old mage's cloister. And so we have kind of an underwater adventure the characters have to prepare for. But that is one for us to build out later. So let's think about the moving isle and some conflict that we might find there. Again, I kind of think this lends itself to a cool dungeon environment kind of deal, which we've done, but isn't necessarily a bad thing. This is a very different location. And one of the nice things about having all of these clues so spread out in our domain of dread is it creates a reward for exploring, for getting out of the world and looking for stuff and trying to find this information. And it helps us do a lot of world building very organically, instead of just doing a bunch of exposition, which nobody likes. So let's see. If this is a dungeon kind of environment, it's a shrine that is linked to Ovander. It's on the back of a giant dragon turtle. I don't think the dragon turtle is much of a threat here. I think of it more as an elemental kind of creature that houses this shrine and swims this vast inland sea, and it has this structure on its back, but it probably submerges from time to time. So maybe there's a time factor that this thing is slowly flooding while the characters are exploring it. So let's say a dungeon crawl where the dungeon itself is slowly flooding as the dragon turtle slowly descends back into the depths. This puts a time factor on exploration and increases the tension on the PCs. And we want to up that tension when we're storytelling. We want there to be a press that's on there. And having that timetable, that timeline on there of how long before this thing completely submerges, and once it's submerged, how long can they stay there and have it moving too, right? So it's a swimming dragon turtle. It's got the little structure on the top here. I imagine they've got to take a boat out here. They kind of lash it off, and the thing is slowly descending. And so at some point, it's gonna hit a point where it kind of drags their boat down with it, if they're not careful. And so they might lose their ability to escape if time runs out. And so these are all little mini dungeons that we're going to have to build out here. Um, the cool thing though is I don't think any of them necessarily need to be terribly long dungeons. I think we can get away with some 5-room dungeons for most of these little dungeon encounters here, and that'll have enough kind of variation to them. Um, we might make the moving aisle a 5+5 or something like that. We might make it a little bit bigger so it takes a little more time to explore, making the time crunch a little more pressing. Um, and of course, just because it's a 5-room dungeon doesn't mean we're limited to 5 rooms. It's really more of a 5-scene kind of dungeon that we have here. Okay, so maybe we should spend some time working on that. So, something to consider is if the sea shanty references the dungeon that our player characters have to go exploring to go find the treasure hunter, well, then there probably needs to be some reference to the artifact in there too. So we may litter some additional clues in that dungeon environment. There's nothing wrong with that. More clues, the better. We want the opportunity for our characters to find this this information, and we don't want there to just be one of anything, because that's easy for them to miss. They can stumble over it. They can pass up a clue accidentally with a bad die roll and just miss out. We don't want that. So let's start building a 5-room dungeon for this. So we're going to call this the Treasure Hunters Dungeon, and we'll give it a cooler name than that eventually. But for right now, it's a good working title. And let's remind ourselves it's a working title. Let's say WT. And let's say it's a 5-room dungeon. Maybe it's a 5+5. We'll see. We'll see what we want to get into this. I always have a tendency to make these things a little longer than I initially set out to, as the ideas begin flowing. So let's think about a premise for this place. So premise is one of the tools that you can kind of use where it's it depends on what kind of writing style you're doing. You may have heard it called other things, but effectively it's what's the point of this place? What is what's happening here? What's the theme? What kind of place is this? So let's see. Let's give ourselves a quick premise. So this place might have some clues as to the lost artifact. And so, what kind of theme should we go with here? Let's do what we always do here. Let's put some placeholders in, and we will brainstorm as we go. So let's say, let's start with a 5-room dungeon format. Well, let's deviate from there. So let's say general features, TBD. And then we're going to say area 1, entry, TBD. Area 2, setback, TBD. Area 3, puzzle, TBD. And area 4, BBEG, TBD. And area 5, reward, TBD. So Our reward for this is twofold. It's a dungeon environment, so we're gonna have a monetary reward. There's gonna be some stuff here, but that might be stuff that they have to split with the treasure hunter, depending on the deal that the characters strike. The real reward is the opportunity to um, kind of get to know this, or to pull information, interview this treasure hunter, and get the clues that they're looking for out of this individual. So we kind of have that one already figured out. Let's see. So we're gonna um, say following, say follow the clues. The characters have the opportunity to to interview the treasure hunter and learn what clues they have about the artifacts whereabouts. Cool. And we'll clean that up as we go. All right. So we're about halfway through our time for what we do on Mondays here, and so I kind of want to take a quick break and do a little bit of shameless self promotion, if you don't mind. So one of the things that I do on this, in addition to this channel, is I run games professionally on startplaying.games. And I have got a bunch that I just opened up that have some slots available here. Um, so if you are a GM looking to get some time as a player, if you're a player who is interested in jumping into some of these games, if you just want proof that I have any idea of what the heck I'm doing, and come join me for some of my games. I've got a number of campaigns. I've got some one shots on here as well. Right now, I've got a Ghost of Saltmarsh campaign, some Lost Mine of Fendelver, Tomb of Annihilation set up here, and then I've got two homebrew original one shots that I've written. So if you want to see if my writing style actually translates into something that's fun and dynamic and that you can actually play, well, come join one of those. Um, I'm doing a promotion for anybody who finds me here on YouTube. So if you go to my page, that's going to be Start Playing. Let me go ahead and get rid of my face so you can see the uh, the URL. That's going to be startplaying.games/GM/RJ Kerr. You can go to my page, you can book with any of my adventures, or you can request a custom booking. I do all kinds of custom stuff here. But if you sign up for one of my games and you send me a message and you tell me that you found me through YouTube, I'll do a $5 discount on your sessions. So that means $5 off if you do one of the one shots, or $5 off every session if you sign up for one of the campaigns. So just go to the page here, go ahead and sign up for one of the adventures. Check out my reviews if you want to see if I'm completely full of shit or not. Um, and yeah, and then let me know that you found me here on YouTube, and I will be happy to give you that discount. All right. So again, that is startplaying.games/GM/RJ Kerr. And now, thank you for indulging me. Let's go ahead and get back to writing our adventure. I'll get my mug back up on the face here, or my mug back up on the screen here, on the computer's face, if you will. All right. So, oh, one thing I will say is, I do a lot of like, this is how you should run adventures, and here's how to write stuff on this channel. And one of the easiest ways to see if I know what I'm talking about is to come sign up for one of my one shots. Those are all things that I've written. Those are all adventures that I used this process for and have built from scratch. They've gotten some great reviews on them, and I look forward to sharing them with you. But you can really kind of see where the proof is in the pudding if you come join one of my one shots. And you get some time as a player, which, if you're a DM or a game master, is pretty valuable in helping you improve and grow as a game master or as a DM. So, With that, let's go ahead and really get back into writing our adventure here. So, let's see here. We were talking about doing our 5 room dungeon. I kind of need to think of a theme for this. One of the things that I find really helpful when I'm writing any kind of adventure is just kind of what is the vibe? What am I trying to do here? Um, what is this? Is this a lost crypt with undead? Is it an old site of demonic worship where we're going to have demons? Is it a hunt for gnolls? What is it that we're doing here? We can link all kinds of clues and stuff in there, but let's do something that gives us a little bit of world building here, that really helps develop out the environment that we've created. And so to do that, we already know that we've got a Sahuagin stronghold elsewhere. So I want to stay away from Sahuagin for this. We know that we're going to have an adventure that takes place entirely underwater later on, and so we're going to have a lot of aquatic themes for that. So this one should probably be up on dry land. Um, this we want it to be kind of a, if you'll forgive me, a basic dungeon, but at the same time, we don't want it to feel like it's basic. We want it to feel like it's organic to the world, and it really provides something in the sense of the world building here, um, without being overly complicated. So, um, the treasure hunter is here for a reason. They're looking for clues as to the whereabouts of this this artifact. So let's think about way back when in the sort of the lore that we're developing for this domain of dread, where we are trying to come up with, or I should say, we've got a what used to be a thriving empire, a sprawling civilization that spanned the entirety of this sort of this bowl before it was submerged and became a huge inland sea, um, with an enormous spire-like castle in the center. Um, and so a we've got a really, we had a really robust civilization here. So it's probably takes place in the ruins of um, one of those structures. And hmm, and it would perhaps have some link to the mage cloister, where the actual artifact is hidden. Um, or you should say resides. So maybe this was like an official outpost for the previous, for this fallen empire at one point. Maybe, I let's, I mean, my mind goes to undead for this, but at the same time, let's see if we've got a better place to kind of put undead. We're definitely going to have undead in our solution here. We're let's get this locked down here so we don't have to keep remembering it. We just have it. So the solution scene, the characters, let's see, the PCs discover that the artifact resides hidden deep underwater in the ruins of a mage's cloister. I can just put that there. Okay. So let's. So we're not limited to using undead in one particular place, but so maybe we work with that here. Maybe we've got some undead. Maybe we have some elemental undead. That would be kind of cool. Blending kind of the two things here, where we have because we have this idea that Ovander sort of brought about the calamity that that flooded this area and created this inland sea and created this domain of dread, and Ovander is an elemental villain, or is an elemental. Um, you know, they are, Strahd talks about, I am the land, you know, but this villain really is the sky and the water, and to some extent the land. It is quite literally the world in which it is contained. Um, so, okay. Um, the dungeon is the ruins of an ancient outpost that fell when Ovander came to power and is now home to let's see here, a host of elementals and undead. Cool. Cool. So so in my mind I kind of envision a keep of some variety here. It doesn't have to be huge. In fact, it probably shouldn't be huge. We want to set up a number of challenges as we kind of go through this. And we have a BBEG that we need to confront. Because one of the challenges we talked about with this BBEG is that that's where they find the treasure hunter, is just as the conflict with the BBEG kind of erupts, and they end up in the situation where players end up in the situation where they have to defeat our BBEG while protecting the treasure hunter. Even though the treasure hunter would just absolutely love if the players got themselves killed, because then they won't have to share their information or their treasure. Okay, so let's think about that. So one of the things to consider here is that we're going to have characters they're probably level 2 when they do this, but they might be level 3 depending on how they jump around. So let's build it for level 2 characters. Let's see here. Balanced for 4 characters of second level. So we'll make a note to ourselves that we're going to build it for second level characters, but that we're going to use this to we're going to make sure we understand how we're balancing in such a way that we can easily adapt it to third level characters as necessary. So let us pull up the new DMG, and which I'm not going to show on here because copyright. but we're going to use that. Sources, source books. And we're going to look at the combat encounter section because they have come up with kind of a new way to handle these, or to sort of calculate. Well, they have a refined way to calculate balancing balancing encounters here, combat encounters here, and it builds off of what was in the original DMG, but now it's a little more streamlined. And frankly, it's what I think most of us who have been using Xanathars have been doing for some time now. So let's decide. Should this be a low difficulty, moderate difficulty, or high difficulty encounter? Well, it shouldn't be low difficulty. Probably it needs to be a high difficulty since it's the boss kind of deal here. So let's do that. Hey, Jonathan. Jonathan says, dang it, I missed it. Yeah, well, we've still got a little more time going on here. We're working on building out a 5-room dungeon where we encounter the treasure hunter as we go here. So thanks for chiming in. It's good to see you. So working on our BBEG here. High difficulty encounter. So let's take a look at that. If we're kind of scrolling through our table here on the encounter difficulty in the new DMG, that tells us that for 4 characters, we've got a budget of about 400 experience points to spend. So let's make quick notes to ourselves here. XP budget. We'll probably get rid of some of these notations as we go. XP, 400 XP for undead and elementals. I haven't checked to see in the new monster manual if they've expanded made some lower level elementals. So let's find out. Actually, let's say we're going to do, I'm on D&D Beyond. I'm hitting up the game rules. We're going to monsters. We're just going to search. We're going to sort by elemental. And let's see here. We're going to show some advanced filters. We're going to go to the source, and we're going to say 2024 Monster Manual. Filter monsters. Let's see what's in there. We'll filter by CR. Well, we'll sort them by CR. Let's see. Yep, mephits are still a thing. So that's a possibility. We probably want some mephits in here. So let's make a couple notes. I'm going to say creature bank. And again, we'll probably delete some of this here when we clean it up to play it, but just to keep some ideas for myself on what we might be working with here, we could say mephits. Let's skim there. Let's see here. Magman. Yeah, it's a possibility. Gargoyles. Ooh. Water weird. They don't have a lot of low-level elementals. But maybe gargoyles, water weird. Gargoyle, water weird. Are all possibilities. Now let's check out some undead, because we don't want to necessarily go too high. The water weird is probably as high as we want to go. It's Challenger ever. It's a CR3. Um, oh yeah, it's gonna be 700 experience. That's already kind of out of what we want. That's probably too high. Gargoyle. Um, ooh, except that I used the wrong line when I came up with all this, didn't I? I used level 1, so we actually have 800 XP in our budget here. My silly mistake. 800 since we're doing second level characters here. Still Water Weird 700. That would be most of that budget. I don't think a solo monster is what we want here. We could do a Gargoyle though. That's going to be 450 XP. So that could be a decent chunk of our budget. The Azure Sentinel. Ooh. Kind of fiery. Maybe. I don't know how I feel about a lot of fire elementals in this. But it's on land, so maybe. Think about that. Well, let's jump in with them. Let's just keep going with what we're going here with the Magman. We're looking at 100 XP and Mephits are anywhere from 1/2, so 100 to, well, anywhere from 1/4 to 1/2, so 50 to 100. So we'll say 50 to 100 XP. Cool. So let me make a note to myself for CRs here as well. CR2. CR 1/2 and CR 1/4 to 1/2. Cool. Let's hear. Jonathan says, what about switching elemental types? An air or water azure, for example. I don't know if it might be too hard to convert. That's a really good question. Let's take a look at the stat block and let's see how hard it would be to convert that. Let's see how much they do here. Ooh, this is why I love having all of you here. Because I would have just skipped over this. Even though I'll be the first, I would absolutely tell you that it's nothing wrong with swapping damage types. But it looks like the Azure Sentinel, and maybe I'm mispronouncing that, but the Azure Sentinel really only has 2 attacks that have fire damage in it. And then, of course, it has fire immunity. But maybe we change that to lightning damage. And it could be a storm sentinel or something along the lines. Yeah. So, yeah, Jonathan says, I know the monster rules are kind of opaque, not easy to suss out. Yeah, they can be. I mean, I think if you, at least in immediately early days on me doing this, and this is my own 2 cents for this, so take it with what you will. I have been finding that if you take the create your own monster section in the original 2014 DMG and take the rules that are in there and then compare it to the monsters of the 2024 Monster Manual, there's a lot more similarity there. I think the actual rules in that DMG for creating monsters in the 2014 DMG is actually relatively thorough, but it just doesn't always match up to the 2014 Monster Manual, and so I think that's where some of the disparities come from. But that's just my thought process on that. That being said, that doesn't necessarily bear a whole lot on what we're talking about here, where we're just changing damage type. And so let's say Azure Sentinel. And that's a CR2. That's 450 XP. And then we're just going to say swamp damage / immunity to lightning. Because that could be a, and we'll say a storm sentinel. That would be so easy to do. And Jonathan says, tiny Ovanderlings. Yeah, like a little mini Ovander. Ovander. Yeah, absolutely. I like that. That's a good idea, Jonathan. I'm going to highlight that bad boy just so that we don't forget. So that's probably makes a decent BBEG for this level, and then we can support them with some methods, potentially. And yeah, so we'll build that out. Let's before we get too in the weeds on that, let's check out some undead and see what we might have that kind of fits what we're looking for here. So we got skeletons, we got zombies, shadows, ghouls, specters. We probably don't need to go as high as a ghast because CR2 is kind of our top here for the moment. So we're probably looking for shadows, zombies, and skeletons, and we can give them make them a little more thematic by equipping them with things that or sort of reskinning them to have some kind of elemental feel to them. You know, I can imagine skeletons that are kind of electrically charged looking, right? You know, you remember in old cartoons when somebody would get zapped and you'd see their skeleton for the moment? Like having skeletons that are kind of like that, their bones glow just a little bit with the electrical charge to represent the humanoids that died here all those centuries ago. And so let's add some skeletons to this list here. CR1 quarter. Yeah. That's what, 50 XP? 50 XP. Elemental infused. Perhaps with stormlights. Jonathan said skeletons could be more marine creatures like Sahuagin or frog-like beings, like Kuatoa, etc. Yeah, they absolutely could be in their shape, and we can decide if we want to do that just based a little bit off of the vibe of this place. If we want to go with that, I didn't want them to be explicitly for them to be like living Sahuagin. Or to have living Sahuagin and that kind of thing in here because we've got a whole adventure that's kind of Sahuagin focused is one of the other investigative scenes, and so add a little bit of variety here. I was thinking of this as kind of an outpost off on the rim of this of the inland sea here. So this was kind of one of the few dungeons that's actually out on land. And so kind of keeping it a little more terrestrial themed to make it distinct from the others was kind of what I was going for there, but that doesn't mean they couldn't be the skeletons of Kuatoa or something like that. Think on that. Let's think on that. In the meantime, let's continue making our list here really quick And then we're pretty much at our time. So let's finish this list and then let's go ahead and wrap up. So zombies and shadows are probably what we're looking for in terms of the undead here at this level. So let's add them in real quick. Zombie, and they are the same CR as skeletons. Coolly enough. All right, and shadows. And they are CR 1/2. And that makes them 100 XP. Cool. And so we'll use this for our XP bank here. I like to kind of detail out the sort of creatures that we might use in advance. Um, it's kind of like I consider it kind of like gathering all of my tools when I sit down to create a discrete adventure like this. Um, it just helps my brain kind of work and think about how all this stuff is going to piece together and what other components we might pull in here. It's like yeah, it's kind of just organizing my thoughts and yeah, my tools as we do this. All right, so we are actually a little over our time. No worries on that. I've been having so much fun with you all tonight. It's been a good time. So, thank you again for joining me. Again, if you want to check out some of my games, even if it's a campaign or a one shot or what have you, come find me on startplaying.games/gm/RJ Kerr. I just put out a whole new batch of available campaigns and one shot adventures on there. So if you want to see if I am completely full of shit or if I actually know what I'm doing when I say I'm running games or running how to run D&D sessions and what have you, come check me out there. Otherwise, if you've enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, leave a comment. All of that stuff really helps me grow the channel and keeps me kind of engaged and gives me that little feel-good feeling that you guys care about what we're doing here. It makes me want to do more of it. So I really appreciate all of that. Otherwise, thanks again, and I will see you next time. We'll pick up again on this coming Wednesday. Those have seemed like they've been a popular day for this live stream. Got a lot of interaction there, so I think we'll keep up with that for a little while. So again, thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Have a good night.